everyone. Welcome back. Compliments of the season to everyone. I'm hoping you guys can hear and see me. If you can, please use your emojis so I can know you can hear and see me. All right, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So I'm hoping we all had a lovely break, had a lovely Christmas, and we are here again with to have another mentorship session. And this time around, we're going to be looking at, how to land your dream jobs with mock interviews. So there are different, for you to be able to get that job that you want, there are interviews that you have to do, and for you to do the interviews, there are tricky questions. There are some questions that are generic, that regardless of what profession you're going for, if you don't know how to handle those questions, they might trip you off. So we have an amazing guest here today. As you guys know, what we try to do to you, we help you guys by bringing seasoned professionals, people with 10 plus years, 15 years experience in the game, and they know exactly what they're doing. And they're going to be, sharing their trade secrets with us, kind of like today. So today we have the opportunity to have Mr. Olukayode Afolabi here today, and he's going to be introducing himself shortly. So for those of you that are here, I think the numbers are low. I know it's season. It's a time when everyone is at home and relaxing. But can you share this on the application so other people can join, and people that are sleeping can wake up and join us here today? Okay. All right. So Kade, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for, I know you could have been doing something else, but you've given us an hour of your time to talk us through this. As you guys know, my name is Tommie Edwards, and I'm the founder and CEO here at Tech1M. And the audience here today are more going to be, and many of them are going to be rewatching this later on. But a lot of them are going to be people that are either trying to transition from one profession to another into tech, or people that are currently coming out of school and trying to get their very first tech role. And those are kind of like the mix of people that we are having in here. So, what your lovely self will be helping us to is to help answer those sort of questions that many of them might have, and also questions that that will definitely trip them off if they don't have those sort of answers. And that's kind of like the format of today. So without further ado, I will leave Kaude to introduce himself, and then we get cracking. Kaude, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tommy, and compliment of the season to everyone on this call. Like Tommy said, my name is Olukayode Afolabi. I'm the CEO of DFS Africa. That's one of the roles I play. So basically, I wear many hats. Okay, wear many hats. I also advise multiple companies, and I also work as consultant for leading companies here in the UK and also abroad. I've been in the IT, tech, health tech for about 15 to 20 years, 20 years in IT in total, but about 10 years working on various projects of my own. And yes, so thank you, Tommy, for inviting me to speak to the group here. And I'm sure that we're going to have a great session this afternoon.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thanks. So as you guys have heard, so this is someone with 20 years plus experience, and there's, like they say, experience is the best teacher. So like everything else that we do, you guys, this is a time for you to put in your questions that you want me to ask Kyle on the Q&A section, and that will be showing up so that we could make use of this time. And don't hold back on your questions. Ask those questions in order to help make this an interactive session, and you get the answers to the things that are probably troubling you. But I'll go with the very first few questions, and then by that time, hopefully your questions will be here for Kade to answer. So Khalid, thanks. Like you said, I was just thinking when you said 20 years, I had to just do a little bit of math. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. It's actually been 20 years. Um, so interesting. So I think my very first question will be that how was it, having, because right now the sort of interviews you are having at the moment and the interviews you were having in the beginning of your career, are they different? What sort of, how different do you think it is? And if they are different, what are the things that you experienced when you were just getting your first career, your very, very first role within the tech industry? So it's just, when I mean what you experience, I mean interview wise, what were the very initial shock to you?
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. So I'll try and break it into two. So definitely to answer that out of the board, the interviews are different. But there is something that is constant in all interviews, whether you're just starting, in fact, even whether you're going for an internship, or it's your first graduate role, or it's your first tech role, or if you're a mid-level professional, or you're, even going for very senior roles. So there are some things that are constant that you will experience at every stage of your career, and there are some that are different. Now, what I like to say about interview, first of all, is going into an interview, you have to understand that you're trying to engage in a conversation to determine whether you're suitable for the role. And the mindset to go into an interview is that, yes, I know you do need a job, but I like you to go into an interview with a mindset that I'm also trying to assess whether it's the right job for me, whether it's the right environment for me. Now, what that does to you subconsciously is that it allows the best of you to flow without just cramming things and maybe answering question hurriedly or not really answering the question the way you should answer the question. So first of all, you're going into a situation and say, I'm also assessing whether this is the right step for me, because actually where you work and what you do actually determine whether you achieve your life goals. So if you have career goals, if you don't interview properly, you may not actually be going into where you should go into. So that's the first mindset you should go into an interview with. That I'm trying to engage in a conversation where they're assessing whether I'm suitable for the role, but you're also assessing whether this is the right people I want to work with. Now, of course, you can be desperate for the job, but just convincing yourself that way helps you to prepare better for the interview and also to also do well in the interview. So in terms of the questions about whether the questions are different, the questions are different, and they're also where they are the same. As we go on this call, I'm going to be able to break down some of the questions, but at a very high level, what I would say is that some questions are very generic, and you're always going to find them. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your plans in the next 5 years, 10 years? Those are generic questions, and we can go into specifics on how you answer those questions at the as we go along on this call. Secondly, you will find that technical questions are more common earlier in your career because most people, when you're starting out, they want to know exactly what you can do in specific areas of the project. Yeah. So if you're looking for a developer, if they're looking for a C# developer, or they're looking for front end developer, React, different technologies, they want to make sure that you can do it. If they're looking for a data analyst, for example, or they're looking for a business analyst or a project manager, at that initial level, the first 3 years of a career, your question can be a bit more technical because they can ask you, show me how you would do this. In fact, for developers, they can actually just say, bring your portfolio or give you an hour, 2 hours, or half a day to actually do a project. So it depends. So that's where it differs. But the more senior you are, then they are trying to assess different areas, which is where mock interviews that we want to talk about actually comes into play, so that you're able to prepare yourself for that interview. In a more senior role, they want to know whether you can lead a team. They want to know whether you can you can manage budget, you can manage people, you can manage time. You have a managerial view or you have a strategic view. So the more senior you are, the more generic and the question is focused on different area. So I think that's what I'm going to say in trying to answer those questions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like the answers that you've given as well, and yeah, I expected them to be different, and that's what I've experienced as well. And it's just like you mentioned earlier on, when you're just starting out, they want you to prove yourself. And as you keep going on, it shows that you've proven yourself in so many places, that what they're looking for now is more of your leadership skills and other additional thing you can bring to the table apart from your expertise. So let's just go straight into it, and let's go straight into, those questions that you can't avoid. You mentioned a few of them while you were talking that we're going to dive into it. I think let's just dive deep right now and say that, regardless of what role that you're applying for, like you've mentioned, the questions like, tell me about yourself, what's your plan for the next 3 to 5 years, what's your how do you handle conflicts, those sort of questions that in those they always come out. So if we are to take those questions one at a time, how do you expect our audience to be able to handle those, or how have you maneuvered those questions over the years?
Okay. I have maneuvered them actually. So I actually like the topic of this session is actually, I think the topic is about mock interviews. Yeah. Using
Yes.
mock interviews to land your job. Now, mock interviews are critical. If you're taking some exams, you do in schools, remember those days you have mock exams, like if you're taking GCSE in those days. I don't think we did mock exams in universities, but in secondary school, you do. Now, the whole idea of a mock is to simulate the real environment and to see how you're going to perform. Now, these questions that we're going to go through, there are questions that you should go through in a mock. Obviously, the more experience you are, the less you need it probably to be in a formal environment to get someone. But I would say, in the first 5, 10 years of your career, depending on the role, especially if you're entering a role that you're not familiar with, you should go over these things in a mock. Because one of the things that a mock interview will do for you, it allows you to clarify your thoughts, and it allows you to answer the questions that they are asking, not just saying what you know. There's a difference between answering the questions and also saying what you know. And what you want to do is to make sure that you use your experience and your skills and knowledge to actually answer those questions. Now, that's what a mock interview would do for you. So you're making sure that you have a professional, a mentor, a colleague, or someone actually hearing you answering those questions. Now, once you do that, you're able to replay them in your mind, and you're able to, okay, this is where I can do better, or these are some points that I missed out. Okay. Now, let's go over a few questions. I'm going to take maybe two or three, and then Tony can stop me, and then we can take maybe questions from the audience. One of the very popular questions that they will always ask you, tell me about yourself. Now, I know some people can go about talking about their life, their family, and I know these days because people always say, so to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be all of that. Yes. But the very first time you're meeting someone for an interview, the first thing that you want to communicate is your suitability for the role. So when you're thinking about, when someone says, tell me about yourself. So like now, if you ask me, tell me about myself, um, there are so many things about myself. And for someone that I don't know, I don't have a relationship with, they're just trying to assess whether I'm good enough for the job. I have to tell them the part of myself that will interest them. So that's the first thing to think about. Tell me about yourself. So it doesn't mean they really want to know your life story. Basically, what they want to know is, am I suitable for the job? So this is an opportunity for you to be able to explain your educational background as it relates to the role. So
Yeah.
if what you studied is not,
Okay. Based on what you're saying, we've had people that we've asked them, tell me about yourself. And people starting, oh, my name is Tommy. I'm the first of the family of four. My sports are this, and I'm like, seriously? Like, do I really need to know you that
when you get
experience?
when you've got the job, you can tell them that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're not, yeah, they're not, probably sometimes maybe at the end of the interview they want to, they ask, but at that point is an opportunity to basically tell them what relates to the job. Yeah, it's the part of yourself, because that's the part of yourself they're actually assessing. They're not assessing whether you're the firstborn or the lastborn, you know. So at that point, you want to be able to uh, share what it is, what you know, your skills, what makes you suitable for the job. So, for example, an example could be that okay, let me give an example. Let's say I'm going for a business analyst. My name is Kayode Afolabi. I've been a business analyst for the last couple of years, and I've worked on several tech projects. And then you give examples similar to what they have. Now, if it's actually your first job, if it's your first job, because probably there are some people here that they've actually never been a business analyst, but you've attended some training. You must be able to highlight the training. I've just been trained in business analysis course with Tech1M. I have done the BCS diploma or this certificate in business analysis, and these are my skills that I bring to the job. And then one of the things I always tell people before you go to an interview, make sure that you have read the job description. Once you read the job description, you're able to create a profile for yourself. In fact, that profile usually will be at the top of your CV, and you just reframe it in the tell me about yourself scenario. So at that point, as that person is interviewing you, they're actually imagining you in that role. Because in the introduction, in introducing yourself, you have already established to them that you're a developer, that these are the projects that you have done, these are the projects that you like, and you're looking for opportunity, to be able to continue your career with that organization. So that's a simple way to say, tell me about yourself. And once they've asked that, and then so some interviewer will just pick one or two points from what you've said, and then you take it forward from there. So that's one question. Tell me about yourself.
So
Another.
Kelly, in answering that question, would it be that for somebody that is just starting, they can say, "Oh, hi, my name is Tommie Edwards, and I've been training as a business analyst for the last year. Recently, I completed my work experience with so. I was able to lead the team that worked on this and this and that and that and that. Some of my responsibilities involve this and this and this and this and this. I'm a very articulate person. I facilitate, and and then you bring out some attributes of yourself while talking about yourself.
That is a perfect answer for tell me about yourself.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then they start to think about Tommy as a business analyst for that particular role. And then they cannot
Fantastic.
begin to how they're like, oh, so how did you do this in this company? Yeah. And then they can just dive straight into your CV. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm just trying to bring it to more practical so
Another
they can.
so another question is, so at the end of these generic questions, I will also maybe give examples of some technical questions. When I mean technical question, how you answer technical questions, okay? Because there's also a way to answer technical questions. But really, what trips most people are these generic questions, because there are questions that you think you know. There are questions that seem simple. So, for example, when most uh, young people or people early in their career are preparing for interview, most people prepare for the technical question so that you can answer them. And most people, which make mock interview, play a role. So exactly what Tommy have said now, if you say that to someone before an interview, when they ask that question, it comes out of you naturally. Another question is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Now, those are things you think about, but also don't think about regularly. Okay. Now, those are things that people notice about you, uh, but probably sometimes you don't notice about yourselves. So preparing for that allows you to be able to just bring it out. And the best way, the way I've answered that is make sure to highlight certain key strengths, yeah, that are relevant to the role that you possess. Yeah. Just give them probably one weakness that is not as relevant. Yeah. It's not as
So what,
relevant to
what,
the
what would you say is a weakness? That bit trips people up a lot.
Okay, that trips people a lot. So, for example, a weakness could be sometimes you are impatient, yeah, but you're working on it by making sure that your plan work with your team. Another weakness, but this will be a weakness for a junior role, that you're still learning to be able to lead people. You understand? But before you say that, you'll have been able to highlight strength that shows that you can actually do work. You can actually deliver. Yeah. Another weakness could be that sometimes you could take in because of your uh, ability to learn quickly on the job. Sometimes you could take in more work than you should normally take. Now, those are weaknesses that there, there, there are easy ways to fix them. Okay, you don't want to highlight weaknesses that make it seem that you won't be able to do the job. You want to show weaknesses that are not, they're not directly relevant to that particular job, but they are areas of improvement. Now, one thing with weaknesses though, when you mention a weakness, is make sure that you mention what you're doing to improve on that weakness. So if you're taking a training, and sometimes you can even mention a technical weakness. So for example, you can say that, oh, maybe you have been developing front end with JavaScript before, but now there are these new tools. I'm not quite strong in them, but I'm taking courses in them, uh, etc. So those are also weaknesses that someone entering a role or earlier in their career could could actually share.
And Kayode, can you just say some of, I already know some in my head. There's some weaknesses that you should never mention. Like,
That you could never mention. uh,
like people say, I'm never punctual. And I'm like, seriously?
yeah, no. That's a no. That sometimes I'm late, you know, or sometimes I have too much that I do that. You know, I'm tired at work. I find
Or
out.
I don't know how to be a team player. I
Yeah,
don't know how
exactly.
to
I
work
don't.
with people. I like working
Some
by
people don't put
myself.
their nerves. Yeah, and even personal things like, you know, if you have some health challenges and things. So those are not things you mention at an interview. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So those are definitely no nos.
Okay.
And strength, you know, like I said, for strength, make sure that um, you pick out strengths that are relevant to the role. Okay, that's very, very important.
Yeah. So, like a business analyst, you could say something like your attention to detail sometimes gets the best of you. So you are too you look at a whole lot of detail, and sometimes you're learning to understand that depending on the stakeholder you're dealing with, you really need no need to share that much detail. So that way they understand that okay, there's the strength here can also be a weakness. The strength is they pay a good attention to detail. But then if they go overboard, they can rub the wrong people the wrong way. So now they need to work on that to make sure that they are better at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So should I start putting in some questions that we have, or you want to go through the last one?
Are there other questions that people have posted, or should we just? Um,
There are questions that people have posted, but I don't want to stop your
let
thoughts
me
at the
take
moment.
one more. Let me take one more. Let me ask
Okay.
one more question. So, let me raise one. One is another generic question or common question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Now, this is also a tricky one in the sense that, uh, in actual sense, nobody knows tomorrow, but they want to have a sense of whether you're the type that is going to be committed to the work. Yeah. So, and it also may be tempting to say, "Oh, you want to be where the interviewer is seated." You know, don't say that. I've heard people say that. Okay, I want to be where you are in 5 years' time. Basically, you're telling probably the person's going to be a
I'm
manager.
not
Like,
sure.
you want to take their job. So you don't want to say that, yeah, or say something senior. But what you want, one of the things you want to say is that you want to have made progress in that organization, progress that made sure that you have contributed significantly and you have also progressed in your role. You would like to take in as many opportunities that come your way, and because you have done a lot of research in the company, you know that there's a lot of room to grow, and that even in 5 years, you'll be taking on more responsibility that you will have been given at the beginning of when you started with them. So that's another way to actually say that this is where I'm going to be in 5 years. But don't be very specific about what you'll be doing in 5 years. The reason is that, in actual fact, the interviewer that is asking you knows that he himself does not, he or she does not know. They don't know what they will be doing themselves in 5 years' time. But what they know is that they do have goals. So make sure that you tie your goals with the company at that interview stage. Another thing you can also add to that is you can also add things that you will have learned. You know, things. So, for example, as a business analyst, you could have looked at the career progression of a business analyst. You could have said, okay, maybe I'll be a lead business analyst. But if the person interviewing you is the lead business analyst, then you don't want to use the title. You just want to say that you have been an opportunity to be able to be responsible for your team members.
Exactly. So, yeah, this at the end of the day, it's just trying to be diplomatic,
Yeah,
making what they're trying to look out for is your commitment and the ability for you to grow. So
yeah,
they don't want you to come in the way you left, to leave the way you came into the organization. They want to make sure that you can pour into the organization as well as you allow the organization. Are you growing within the organization allows you to see that they are pointing that to you. But as human beings, like Kyle is mentioning, you cannot throw a sharp arrow at somebody and say, I'm coming for your job. Then that person already sees that I'm hiring somebody that's going to be aggressive, and you don't want to be that. So you want, even if that's your personality at the interview table, you want to be as diplomatic as possible. You want to be able to say that I'm going to immerse myself into the organization, give as much as I can, um, and continually develop myself and carry on my continuous professional development within the organization. Ensure that I volunteer myself to CSRs that is important to the organization. No, those are kind of things that are saying this person is a good person, but also somebody that wants to grow. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some of the questions that we have here. Then we'll go back to anyone that no one has mentioned that you
okay,
think we should look. So this is from Awal Quadri. He said, how to professionally say I don't know the answers to this question as a newbie during interviews. This is a good one.
okay. This is a very good question. Especially as a newbie, one of the things you want to communicate is what you have learned and your interest in that position. So if sometimes when somebody asks me, especially when I was starting out, a question I don't know, I will ask them to rephrase the question. Uh, if after they've rephrased it, it's very clear that it's not something I have any idea about, you have to be very honest. Don't waffle on to number one, say the wrong thing or dance around it. Yeah, just be very honest that okay, I actually don't know this because I haven't come across it, but I'm sure that it's related to this particular role and it is something that you're going to learn. Yeah, because one of the things you will find out, especially in job description, because I've hired a lot of people, I've interviewed a lot of people, is that sometimes when we craft these job descriptions, uh, we don't just put exactly what you would do, we sometimes expand it. Yeah. And sometimes, depending on how prepared the interviewer is, because that is also another tip for you, that the same way you're preparing for an interview, the interviewer also has to prepare. Now, if an interviewer is not well prepared for the interview, you have to be prepared to be able to, in a way, help them. Yeah. So one of the things you will say is that, well, uh, while you have not come across that, but you're confident that most of the things in the job description you could do, and as you go along in your career, those are the things that you'll be able to learn. And sometimes the interviewer will immediately either give you the answer or tell you, yeah, okay, actually, we actually don't need it now, but I just wanted to see, whether it is something that you're keen to actually learn about.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
go ahead.
Carry
Because I've actually seen scenarios where uh, someone was asked a question because the interviewer think, oh, I think we need. In fact, let me give you a specific example. There was somebody I was mentoring who she she's a data analyst, but she went for this startup interview. Right there and then, the CEO thought that okay, because of all these your skills, you may be able to also do some financial stuff. So and then began to ask her questions about financial analysis. So but she was actually open about it that actually, if you're actually good at this, maybe we can give you the job, and then even more pay and things like that. But she was able to say, okay, this and this based on the job interview, based on the job description, this is what I can do. This other, maybe I can learn some of these things because some of the questions you're asking me, return on investment, return on capital employed, those are financial terms that I have actually not learned. But there are things that I can learn if the organization wants me to work in that. So you have to just be very, very direct as quickly as possible. Once you know that there's no way around it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with what you're saying. This happened to me, I don't even know how many years ago now, like 12 years ago. And it was a role that the way the interview has gone is gone conversational, that I can already tell, that I can sense that I'm probably the best candidate for the job from their own eyes. But then they just threw in one additional question, and it was data related. And as at my role then, I had nothing to do with data. So they were talking about Microsoft Access, SQL, and things like that. And knowing my CV, I didn't really write anything like that. Maybe I had one or two lines that I worked alongside someone that was doing that. So this is where I could either screw the whole thing up for myself by trying to bamboozle myself around the question and say, oh, yeah, 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 I can do that. I've got that. Or by just going and telling the truth. And the truth actually ended up getting me the job. So I'm like, funny enough, that's a skill that I'm looking to learn. I don't quite have it at the moment, but it's one of those things that I want to develop myself in. And this would be an awesome challenge to do that. If I'm opportune to have this role, then this will be one of the areas that I really, really want to be abreast, that I want to work with people that already know it. And I already have the materials that are going to allow me to, get myself running very quickly on the Access database. I have a vague knowledge of it, but not an in-depth. So, but if what we need for this role is an in-depth knowledge, and I'm willing to equip myself to that to ensure that I can do it. And then immediately, just like Kayode says, oh, yeah, 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 we're going to need that later on. And then there are already people within the team that can help you with that. But just wanted to know that you have an idea. I'm like, yes, 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 I've got an idea. And that was it. And I got the role. So sometimes honesty is the best, is the best answer. Just give the direct, but then don't just say, oh, no, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
that is like, there's more than no, I don't know. You don't just say I don't know. You have to say it with the flair of, do you know what? On it, I'm not an island. I can't know everything, but then I'm willing to learn, and I know little about it, but then I'm willing to learn more, and I'll put everything to make sure that I can learn this and do this job. And that honesty is going to be seriously appreciated by the interviewer.
Yeah. It's true.
Okay. So another question on stage. Awal, I hope that answered your questions. Please put something in the chat to make Kayode know that your question was answered properly. So this is from Eswa. Eswa is saying how to choose the right mock interviewer. In the beginning, you were talking about interviewers, you could have your friend. How do you choose the right one?
Okay. This this is easier. So, for example, if you've gone through a training program like Tech1M, I'm sure Tech1M can get one of their team to be your mock interviewer if you get an interview. So that's one way to actually get someone to interview you. If you currently work in a company or you know somebody, but they are probably slightly more senior than you, then you can ask them, that, or have this interview. This is what the job entails. Send them the job description and your CV or your resume, and then arrange a time to have a mock interview. But as much the most important thing is to make sure that you simulate the real thing as much as possible. So you dress up for the interview, and they're as formal as possible. You can even give them the questions to ask. Some of these generic questions. So there are questions that, as much as possible, yes, we should be quick thinking, but there are questions that at least you should have at least 2 or 3 points to say about before going in there. That is the key. That what the interviewer will now do, the mock interviewer will now do, is to give you feedback how that came across. So yeah, so anyone, preferably someone who's senior, more senior than you, a mentor, a coach, a teacher, or if you can't find any, then maybe one of your colleagues, one of your friends, to interview. Because what you just want is somebody outside of yourself giving you feedback. Yeah, and also you yourself hearing yourself. And some people even record themselves. You can even record yourself. You can record the session to see how you came across. Did I come across well? Was I actually answering the question, or am I just trying to empty what is in my head?
Absolutely. I was going to say the recording part as well. If you can't find anyone, press record and
Yeah,
simulate yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and just keep talking. And then play it back and listen to yourself. If you are sitting down as the hiring manager, would you hire you?
yes,
So that's the test of that question. Now, if you're also going to find somebody to be your mock interviewer, don't find somebody that is just your overpower. There are some powers that don't tell you the truth. There are some people that are scared to tell you the truth. You don't want somebody that's scared to tell you the truth. You want someone that is saying, boy, no, 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 do that again. or you don't want someone that is just saying, "Ah, well done, that was good." No, that's not what you need by that at that time. You want someone that's going to criticize you, but criticize you appropriately. You also don't want someone that is overly, that can just criticize every aspect that damns your, your confidence for this interview. So you need to find, like how they said, someone in the middle, someone that that is senior to you, that has probably has experience hiring, or someone that is your friend, but is friend that is blunt, that can tell you the truth and knows when not to go overboard. You get, so you can use that. And if you can't find anybody, interview yourself and tell yourself the truth, and you'll be okay. I think you've answered this, but see, there's something else. How do you answer the question, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, without sounding cocky in your aspiration?
Yeah, I think we have answered this one.
Yeah,
Who was asking is, yeah,
I think
because
she
the way
asked
we have framed,
you answered.
yeah, yeah, the way we have framed it is, yeah, you're not being cocky, and you're also not being too vague. Yeah, I think we've answered that. So, but if you still have a follow-up question, please type it into the chat, and then we can look at it.
Okay, so Victoria, please, if you think that your question was not answered, please type that in so that Carly can go again. Another question we have here is, how can I prepare for a virtual interview as a newbie, in the field I'm applying to? So virtual interview, it has a slightly different way to the, face-to-face interview. What would you suggest?
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say that most interviews now are virtual, depending on where you are in the world. At least maybe the first one will be a virtual interview. Um, and since everyone went through the pandemic, there's now a particular standard that is required. Yeah, and most of them has to do with technical, your surroundings. So make sure that if your surroundings are not very clean and professional, make sure that you have a background, that you can use. Make sure you're well dressed. It doesn't mean because you're at home and it's virtual and you just turn up in your pajamas or something that is not professional. So make sure that your internet is sound. Make sure that you invest in good internet. Just like, because when you even start the job, part of the job may actually be remote. So make sure that you have all of that in place, the internet, your screen, the cameras. Make sure that all of that works, and make sure that you have tested it before joining at the interview, because you don't want to be in an interview and then the background is quite bad. They can't see you, they can't hear you. So those are some of the things that in a face-to-face scenario will not happen. So you want to make sure that they don't have an impact on the interview. There's a way where something that has nothing to do with what you're actually doing is not interfering. So you want to make sure that you have removed all of those things that can interfere, so that it's just a conversation that is happening. Just like you would pick up a phone and talk to somebody and you can have a conversation. Make sure that for the interview, you can actually have conversation with the interviewer. So I guess that's what I'm going to say about virtual interviews. The content itself is the same. It's not different. Because if it was different, then employers are not going to be getting good people to work for them. So it's the same questions, the same approach, but just make sure that all of those technical areas are answered, are taken care of.
Okay, I have a lot to add to that one, because this is something that I think there's just something that is just normal etiquette that a lot of people don't have. You will have people that you're about to have an interview with, and they will not have the courtesy to turn on their camera. That's number one. You can't have an interview without being live, like your camera. Forget about the interviewer. You that you want the job, you have to definitely turn on your camera and be live. Now, you can't say the time of the interview was already sent to you. You accepted the interview. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm in a noisy place." Why are you in a noisy place? That means that you should have made yourself, like how Wakade was saying, make sure that you've any those things that are going to interfere, they're already cut out. Find the best room possible. Put in a background. Make sure that you are dressed appropriately, like you mentioned. And when you are talking, use your gestures, use your mannerism, talk with your eyes, talk with your, talk, let the person understand that you have this, your passion is coming through. As I'm talking to you guys, my passion is coming through this conversation, because I'm constantly using my hands, I'm using my face, I'm using my gesture, and you can tell that from Kade as well. Or so it's not what's your name? My name is Tommie, and no, you pour yourself into it. All of that allows them to really understand that, okay, this person has this, it's just a normal etiquette that they don't really teach you in school, but just expect you to know it. And those kind of things, like I can't count how many people that we have cancelled. We are like, there's no point even interviewing you, because I cannot even hear if you know the job, because you don't even know the basics. There's no point. So you've already ruled yourself out. All these things I've mentioned are very, 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 very important. If you and these days there's video interviews that they're asking you to do a video interview even before you meet the interviewer. We do that. It's the same thing as a real interview. Get yourself in a good environment. So you see some people doing video interview lying down. You see their pillow showing, and they are doing the video interview. All of this is just you're giving yourself away that when you get the job, this is how you're going to be behaving. That's all you're telling the person. This is my normal personality. So you have to, you know, I could have come here this morning and just slap off my wig. Don't do makeup. Don't just come here, roll up, wear my pajama. I'm allowed, but I won't do that. It's disrespectful. Do you get the whole point? So because of that, you go extra. You want to make sure that you're presenting the best version of yourself every single time. You might never ever get an opportunity to present that version of yourself again. So every time you're turning up, you have to turn up 100%, every aspect. So that's this particular one. I know, Kade, you've answered it. You assume everybody knows that physics. Trust me, everybody does it, because it's just it's just what I was just very perplexed when I was seeing the way some people were answering some things, and I'm like, there's a whole lot of etiquettes that still need to be taught. So thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah. And what I will add to that is, because everyone has gone through the pandemic, I think I said that earlier, there are no excuses anymore. So yeah, everything I've said to me, yeah, people need to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is another question from Kingsley. Kingsley says, what truly captures a recruiter's attention when presenting yourself and your skills during a job interview stage?
Okay, so this is very important. Number one, everything we have said up till now is important. Now, in capturing their attention, make sure that you have researched the interviewer themselves, you have been researched the company, and you have also researched the role itself. You have read through the job description in detail. Now, the reason I'm saying that is this. Uh, when somebody asks me a question, I'm actually thinking about the job itself. So I'm not just thinking what a developer does, what a business analyst does, what a project manager does, what a data analyst does. I'm trying to make sure that I answer the job description. Now, there are some interviews you're going to have that it could be very conversational. There are some interviews where, and I'll give two examples how I overcame this. There was an interview I did probably maybe like 12, 12, 13 years ago, yeah, in the UK here. And the interview went very well. We really got along. We even started to talk about my football club, Arsenal, and all of that. And I thought I got a job. At the end, I didn't get a job. And I was wondering, why didn't I get a job? So when I spoke to one of my friends and then we went through what I went through, one of the things he pointed out was that I did not, the, the way the interview went, I did not lead the interviewer to ask me the question he needed to ask me, or
Mm.
to even make sure that I chip in the things they wanted. Because what will happen is this: let's say they interview four of you, and then at the end they're doing a debrief. Well, can this person do this? Can this person do this? Can this person engage us in this? When it gets to you, even though the interview went well, they really don't have something concrete to say about their conversation with you. So the very first thing to make sure that you're engaged there is to make sure that when you're answering your question, you're actually answering something on the job spec and you're giving examples. Now, examples actually spark their interest in you. So because there is a way I can answer a question and it's so generic. Oh, so tell me about a time where you had a conflict with a coworker and and you just say, I'm very gentle, I'm a team player, and I make sure I don't get into argument. Yes, those are generic terms, but that is not addressing the question. Now, the way to answer that question is to give a specific scenario. So you give a specific scenario. So you first entered answering the questions with a generic way of how you are a team player, but then you now give an example was on my last project or my last team assignment if you have not worked before, and then give specific scenario. Now that scenario, they start to imagine that scenario in their head, and that makes them to connect to you as a real human. Actually, they actually start to imagining you playing that role in their company. But if you just give an answer, and this is something that I teach everyone, even my children, that if you just give a point, don't just give a point, because one of the things that happen when you give a point without an example is that you allow that person either to doubt what you've said, or to come back even with more additional question. When they start to just to probe and to probe on a particular question, it means that you have not answered them. And when you're not answering them, you're not really engaging with them. And they're already thinking, oh, we don't think he knows what is required in this job. So that's those will be the major things for you to know when you're going into an interview. And when you give examples, it engages them. And how you be able to give examples is you will. So I normally do this task, and I teach people to do this. So you look at the job spec, and you look at your CV. Usually, typically, you should have matched the job spec to your CV. And then you now look for an example that ties to that job spec. That, okay, we need somebody who is able to build a dashboard with Access database. And then you look for a project, hey, I built a project with Tech1M company, blah, blah, blah. And then you're able to describe that. So that's one way to make sure that you actually engage them, because at that level, you see, one of the things I keep saying on this call is that you want them to imagine you in that role. That's usually my strategy, and that's what I teach people. Make sure that they can see you playing that role, and the best way that they see you playing that role is to give them example of how you've done something similar, even if you've not done something exactly like that, but something similar.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. We have 5 more minutes for this to end, as we have another
Okay.
session. We have
Okay.
another session.
Maybe we take one more question. Maybe we take one more question, and then I can just run over some tips that I
Okay,
actually wanted
please.
to share.
But before then, on this question that you talked about, there's this acronym. If you guys don't know it, Google it. It's called STAR. Whenever you're answering any interview question, use the STAR acronym, which means that the S is basically the situation. So when there's somebody asking you a question about, oh, how do you do this, then you have to first of all tell them the situation. You set the scene. Then the T is for task. Describe the purpose of that situation. You describe the purpose of the task that was at hand. Then the A is action. You explain exactly what you did, the step-by-step action that you did. And then the R is results. What's the outcome? So if you are using all of that to start to answer all of your questions, don't go and be telling the recruiter S for this, T for this. Just say it in your head. But then that's the purpose in which you are laying out the answers. I think that in that way you'll be able to answer these questions fast. Okay, so considering we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to take the question that has been upvoted the most, and I'll put that one here, and then Kyle will run us through the tips as we close. So this is from Omochola. She said, when a recruiter asks if I have a question, must I ask question? And what kind of question should I ask? Very good question.
Um, what when a recruiter asks if I have a question, must I ask a question and what kind? Yes, you must ask a question. And even if uh, they don't ask, make sure you ask a question. Yeah, make sure you ask the question, because it actually shows that you're interested in the role. It shows that you're prepared for the role. And it just is one of the ways to actually also catch their attention. Now, one of the things I always do is to, uh, in this place, I ask at least two questions. Yeah, sometimes it could be three, depending, but at least I will ask two questions. And the first question has to do with the job itself. Yeah, make sure the questions are well researched. So you must know about the company. So basically, you can ask something about the project team, how many people are in the team, um, what phase they had in the project. So, for example, some project, and make sure that when you're asking the question, because they also want to know whether you're listening to them. Some will have said the same about the project from the beginning. So if there's something they've already said the same, don't ask exactly what they've told you, but you can ask around it. So for some, they might tell you that, oh, maybe somebody was leaving, the project was already midway. Some, the project may just be beginning at the beginning. Some, the project may be ending and maybe they need to do testing and then deploy it. And the project just has to do with deployment. So make sure you understand. Now, that is not clear, that's an indication of the kind of questions you can ask. You can also ask personal questions, to the interviewer. Sometimes it puts them on the spot. That, okay, what have you enjoyed about working with this company? That's also a very good question. So there are different ways, and I'm sure you can, because of time, you cannot, I can't go into that, but you can research on the internet about different questions. But make sure that you always ask questions, and it can be about the company, it can be about the role itself, it can be about the person interviewing you, but just make sure that you do ask a question.
All right then. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kade. Kade has dropped the acronym, the STAR acronym, and what you can do for with each one. So you guys copy and paste it from there. Thank you so much. I noticed that the team has dropped the link to the next one we are having in 1 minute's time, which is going to be talking
Okay.
about imposter syndrome. So make sure that you join that as well. But you guys, if you guys have enjoyed what Kade has poured into us today, please use your emojis to appreciate him. Let's appreciate his time because he doesn't have to do this, but he has given us a lot of his time today to come in and tell us. And I've learned a lot from this, and I'm sure you have as well. So, Kade, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know we have Kayode again sometimes in January. So I'm sure that we could use this as a part two of what we started so that if there are any other things that we need to discuss, then we can use that time to discuss it. But yeah, so from all of us, we want to say thank you again, Kayode. And, we wish you and your family all the best. Thanks for being here. And hopefully we'll see you guys. We'll see you in January.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, then. All right. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys in the next session that is happening right now. Bye.